Here are your free games with Prime in June.
Battleman and Beast for survival set in the Himalayas in the open-world action-adventure shooter Far Cry 4. Then, adventure to the high seas as Pirate Guybrush Threepwood in the point-and-click adventure Escape from Monkey Island. Join the WRC Championship to win the most challenging motor racing competition in the world. Build yourself a cat cafe of your dreams in the sim game Calico. Journey with the Astrologaster, who uses the stars to cure the sick in 1592 London. Then, follow Alice on a musical adventure in Across the Grooves. With Amazon Prime, you also get free shipping, videos, music, groceries, and more. Play your favorite games straight from the cloud on Amazon Luna. Go to gaming.amazon.com for all these free games and more. Go where the games take you.
Happy Sunday, Smite fans, and welcome back to Phase 2 of Season 9 of the Smite Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Prime Gaming. Make sure that you are getting the most out of your Prime Gaming subscription by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account to get all the free games that you saw just earlier on and get exclusive content for the games that you were already playing and even a free Twitch subscription to your favorite streamers out there. If you don't have Prime membership already, make sure that you pick that up because you get free 2-day shipping on all the great things that you are going to buy and gets delivered straight to your door with no hassle to be through there. So thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor in Season 9 of the SPL. But it's day number 3 of our first week back in Phase 2. We've seen a lot of great things, and we're going to see a lot of great action today. 3 sets ahead for you, but I can't do this alone. My name's J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me on the desk to get ready to kick off our day, kick off our final day of our first week of the phase.
Yeah, Smite Sunday. It's finally here, and looking at this matchup, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, the Titans have been looking so solid up until that Masters land. They looked nigh unstoppable, I would say. They didn't drop many sets, and I don't think they dropped any towards the end of those finals matchups. And now the Levi's even looking so solid coming up. Now we were wondering how they were going to change their play style up, and they've been looking pretty explosive.
Taking a look at the schedule for today, you've seen that we've gone through our first 4 sets. We got a couple of 2-0s, a couple of 2-1s throughout the weekend, and now we're going to round it out with 3 full sets of play. The Leviathans and Titans to start our Sunday out, the Kings and the Valkyries up next, and then the Scarabs and the Warriors to close out week 1 of the SPL in phase number 2, week number 1. And I think you're right to talk about, the Leviathans, the Titans, this first set. This was one that maybe if you were to look at it in a vacuum kind of maybe 3 days ago even, you kind of look and go, I don't know, man. Leviathans weren't looking so great in phase number 1. The Titans just won Masters. This one probably looks like it's going to be pretty easy for the Tartarus Titans, but after watching the Atlantis Leviathans set just the day before, seeing the dominant performance that they were able to have out on the battleground up against the Warriors, this might be a lot closer than we think, and it might even be a bit of a tougher match for the Titans because this is a storied matchup between these two teams more than anything, going even all the way back towards Phase 3 of the SPL, then we hit in towards Worlds, and then kind of starting this phase out. The Leviathans were able to find success over the Titans, but the Titans have really stepped it up, and they've been able to really find themselves a place in this meta, Trelly.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. I think you're right to highlight it, right? You'd think, okay, let's take a step back and watch how the Leviathans were playing in this set. Previously, it wasn't the best phase, but in history, they've been able to find success over the Titans more often than not. Worlds Finals, rematch, even up into the start of this phase. It's just the Titans always seem to just never be able to take on the Levi's, but given how solid the Titans have adapted to this meta, it seems like they were the quickest to understand how to play the map, how to, change up their play style around these new picks, mostly off the back of SOT on these different style solo lane picks that not everyone was ready for, not everyone came equipped. He still has the regular solo picks like the Osiris, for example, but he also has that Chernobog solo in the back pocket. He tried Apollo solo, things like that, and not everyone was ready for it, but the Leviathans, as we mentioned, they came out swinging, and it looks like they are starting to understand this meta a whole lot more, just like we thought.
Yeah, the Tartarus Titans have really been able to adapt well to it. It's something that, I even got to talk to Final K just before that actual finals matchup in Masters had taken place between the Titans and the Kings. And as Final K said, do you kind of have an idea of maybe which team that you're giving any favoritism towards when the final goes? He mentioned the Tartarus Titans because they were playing a very similar style to the Jade Dragons at that time. We saw that reflected in how the Jade Dragons were playing in their set prior to that one, even how they're still playing currently now. The question is, are the Tartarus Titans still playing that similar play style that they were playing at Masters? Are they still running these double, triple hunters? Or are we going to see even more new stuff out here? Because some players are saying the meta is shifting up a lot. Others are saying meta hasn't changed a bit.
Yeah, and if you've been watching these games so far in Phase 2, I mean, it's been looking like it has changed a little bit. You're not seeing as many, but they've seen like these Glad Shield style warriors coming back to the solo lane a little bit. The King Arthurs and the Kakolans are still highly prioritized, but that doesn't mean that the Mercuries or the Chernobyls have fallen by the wayside. They're just more so going back to their traditional roles in just running the jungle and in that duo lane. So it really just depends on the team comp right now, J-Mac. I think I think we'll get a little bit of information here by watching these matches, but also it seems like some of these teams are keeping their strats under their hat for now.
Yeah, everybody, it's only week number 1. And, everything is not do or die right now. It is a double elimination style of phase, so you do get to play these teams another time. There's going to be more weeks to come, so it's not like, you have to show everything right now to get that one win to make sure that every single one counts. Sure, every win does count, but you get a little bit of leeway. And this matchup, with how many times these two teams have faced off against each other just in the last 6 to 8 months of play, should at least make for a very interesting one. And speaking about the Tartarus Titans, we've actually got one of them standing by for our pregame interview. We've got Aurora, the support for the team, standing by. Aurora, typically after like big events, with the teams that don't end up winning, we always ask, what do you guys work on to improve? But since you guys had won the Masters, I'll ask, what have you guys been doing, since that Masters victory?
We took a short break, and then we've just been back to scrimming and trying to get better.
Well, there you go. Nice and easy one. First off, again, thank you for, I should have said first, thank you for coming out for the interview on there. Now, whenever the Leviathans had their struggle in Phase 1, people may have been wondering, what's the Leviathans going to be like in Phase 2? We were kind of wondering the same thing at the start of the week, jumping in, and then they kind of just blew through the Oni Warriors entirely. I mean, was there any surprise to you that the Leviathans coming back stronger in Phase 2?
There wasn't really a surprise. They looked pretty good, but we're feeling pretty confident ourselves, so I'm excited to play. It should be a good match.
Do you think that there's been a lot of meta shakeups with the new patch that's come out, some of the changeups to Glad Shield, some of the crit changeups? Do you think there's been a lot of things, maybe even just in your role specifically, that's kind of shifted around?
I think there's a lot of smaller things that maybe don't show up as much, like to the average viewer's eye, but for the most part, a lot of the same picks, but just change ups in builds and maybe a couple other gods that are kind of starting to leak into the meta.
All right, well, Aurora, thanks for coming by for the pregame interview. I'll let you get back with your team always get set up, and good luck in your set.
Thanks.
It's one of the more calm interviews that we've actually had with a Titans player. I remember, whenever I first got to jump into the SPL, anytime that we would interview the Titans, it was always pure chaos. It was always fun to interview these guys, no matter what it comes out there. But I think Aurora, maybe trying to, hide the fact that there's some interesting things that have been popping up, but also mentioning that we have seen some small change-ups through the meta, whether it be for build, maybe whether it be for a certain god in certain roles.
Yeah, you got to throw some respect to Aurora's way. He's going to give us a little bit of a hint. He's not going to reveal any strats right before the match, but he will say there is some, some small things that you might not notice, some build path changes, some gods that are leaking their way through, but either way, I think it's going to be an exciting one, and that was Aurora's game face. I could tell. He's zoned in.
Yeah, he is dialed in, and he's going to need to be up against the Atlantis Leviathans, somewhat revitalized now after a shaky Phase 1 and maybe not so hot Masters land. The Leviathans have looked nothing but hot in their setup against the Oni Warriors, completely dismantling this team, only dropping 6 kills total, if I remember, between the 2 games that they had played up against the Oni Warriors over just a couple of days ago. And Leviathans, it really does feel like they have found their stride once again.
Yeah, I mean, off the back of Pantom, I gotta say, he's been looking on fire. Just in those 2 sets that we did get to watch, it just seemed like he was able to find so much success. He was able to find ganks wherever he was, and his whole team got to profit from it, right? Whenever your jungler is on point, showing you these ganks going from the right side of the map to the left side of the map and so on. Every time you see one of these clips that it's a highlight, you're gonna see Pantom somewhere in the backline setting up for these kills, and that's sort of the issue right now. If you are the Tartarus Titans, you have to have a target on Pantom's back saying we have to be able to stop this. We cannot let the farm get so out of control that we're not able to fight back into this game, because it just seems like when Pantom gets onto these strong early game assassins, he's able to just make sure his whole team gets ahead off of it.
And then just because, as you said, Panatom's able to get ahead, it allows players like Shinto to really be able to dictate the pace of the game through that mid lane, that game 1 Poseidon with a strong performance, then immediately following up after. So Atlantis Leviathans are back. They're strong. Maybe, I can't really say stronger than ever just yet. We'll have to see how they can handle against some of their former competition. You know, another World's Finals rematch between these guys to kind of start this phase out. So I'm very excited to see how this set will pan out. Maybe to kind of see the clashing of the minds. You know, the Tartarus Titans were following under that same, you know, moniker that the Jade Dragons were, of the double to triple hunter style of compositions to really roll through the early game, shred objectives and team fights in the late game. Atlantis Leviathan started somewhat adapting to that one. It's something that Rung Yu was talking about. You know, we were a little bit slow to adapt to the meta compared to other teams. That's why they had a bit of a struggle during Masters, but it seems that they've been able to finally get that time to adapt in, and they've been able to make some great adaptations.
Yeah, and that's the question, right? Because the Leviathans are they've always been so hungry, right? They spend hours grinding ranked, hours in scrim, just trying to improve this. I'm not gonna say every team doesn't do that, but the Lions especially. You see that their SPL set's done, and there's already 3 of them in a ranked queue, something like that. And I think they were, they're not happy about finishing 6th place, right? They wanted to get better, they wanted to continue grinding, and it shows that they have a much better understanding of the meta. But we've already highlighted that the Titans, they seem to have had this down for quite some time. Have they continued to improve that, or have they just said, you know what, we were the #1, we can just sit back?
Picks and bans for game number 1 between the Leviathans and the Titans. Rare and ready to go. Talking a lot about picks that have been prevalent in just the last few days. Khepri definitely one of them. The Leviathans will make sure to take that one away from Aurora. Chernobog has been topping the charts again, even more so, I would say, over the Jingwei at this point. Jingwei not finding that same level of success that her ADC counterpart has been. And not just that, the Umoja, and it's not just because Umoja is good, it's also because Rong Yu's one of the sickest Umojas in the league, so you got to make sure to take one of his best picks away from him.
Yeah, and I think Mercury and Nemesis soon to follow up here, as the Titans will take away the Merc. Definitely a little bit more prioritized than that, and the Titans are not in that first pick spot. They have to try and ban that away, and I'm surprised Leviathans are going to ban away the Nemesis because they are in that first pick spot, but maybe there's something they have their eye on even more so than that. But expect to see both these assassins banned throughout this set unless someone just really wants to give up early pressure or just has an answer for. We have not been able to see too many answers for these characters, so that's why we're seeing them both taken away here. The Titans have one more option to try and take away. Given the fact that Umoja and Khepri were both taken away, and the fact that the respective junglers are, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chernobog follows suit, just because you don't want to deal with that global presence, but the AMC is going to be the option. So the Leviathans have that. They do have the Chernobog if they want to grab it, or they can give it away to the Titans, and they will not let that one slip through their fingers.
No, the Chernobog with his flexibility between the solo lane and the hunter role, respectively. Less so in the mid nowadays, especially with Yarkor on the Leviathan team, having piloted this god just in their previous set. Means the Chernobog is going to be a good, at least, first pick for this team just on the whole. The Tartarus Titans with a very early East set pickup, and maybe a little surprising that East set's the first one that gets grabbed out there, considering that Leviathans don't really play this one as much. We've been seeing a little bit of light of that one for Shinto, specifically in the mid lane, is kind of like this one, but East set and Jingwei, first 2 picks for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, Paul just loves this East set. If you can get to late game, you see so many times around those Fire Giant pits, Paul will just throw out a Spirit Ball, max range someone, start the fight, and they're already half health. It's just an easy win after the fact. So he loves getting this pick. It's good setup and good peel for his team, as well as just great objective confirm, as well as Jingwei, as you mentioned, has fallen a little bit out of the meta. Not out of the meta, I would say just falling out of that #1 first pick, end-all be-all pick, but still definitely very strong, very safe, and a hard carry in her own right. So that'll be a safe pickup there as well to try and counteract either the Chernobog's pressure in duo lane, or if it wants to go over to Yarkor in the solo lane, just try to match some of that movement. But Daji is going to be the pickup here. Not going to be a great time for the East set. We see The Leviathans, when they were up against that Daji, they answered back with the Oleron. Will they try and grab an Oleron here? Certainly could be a possibility, but it looks like Baron is actually going to be the choice here. Another very powerful swing pick that you could say, hey, we're going to put this in support, or we can just go ahead and put this in solo lane with a Bumba's Hammer, have so much setup as well.
So far, mostly just been being played over in the solo lane for teams that have been gotten him, though we've seen a couple of moments where Baron has made his way over to the support role. So, still a little bit of ambiguity as to exactly where the Leviathans are going to slot this Chernobog and this Baron. Tartarus Titans with the E-set could still flex that one over to Aurora if they want to go with the idea that you were bringing up with the Oleron mid instead, potentially going over to Paul, though we haven't seen Aurora play the E-set very many times at all from at least what my memory serves. One more pick for the Tartarus Titans in their top 3 before we go to another round of bans. With a carry and with this mage locked in, Titans have a lot of options out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to try and grab something for layers now, considering how many jungle bans have already been grabbed and how many might go away. But instead it will be the Kumbhakarn, so this E-set will be going over to Paul in the mid.
Yeah, I think Aurora on the Kumba is going to be pretty solid here. Anytime Daji wants the Trickster Spear to the back line or just blink and try to get 1,000 cuts off, it's going to be mezzed out. There's no real way to engage into a Kumba whenever he's there. He just has so much peel, so much CC. It's really annoying to try and deal with. Notably, the Fenrir is still open, something that Layers has liked a whole lot. This Golden Blade, this Bumba's Hammer style build on the Fenrir. I think it's got a decent matchup into Daji as well. You can just use that Ragnarok to immune the Powwow and then find some pulls there, or just use that Bumba's Hammer late game and try and spam some abilities, that sort of thing.
With that Ymir banned away, we've been seeing a little bit of a rise of Ymir with some of the change-ups that's come his way, with how many hunters have been coming out, being able to throw up those walls in front of towers, in front of phoenixes, has really been able to slow down some of those pushes. And then this Poseidon, which has been a very popular pick, especially in that jungle role, but not just in the jungle. We've even been seeing some of the mid players like Shinto just a couple of days ago take that pick over there. So coupling the Ymir and the Poseidon, now with an Erlong Shen and an Osiris, we have our 4 bans laid out ahead of us. Tartarus Titans now at the first pick out of that slot, looking for their solo, looking for their jungle. Still quite a few options available to them.
Yeah, I like the Osiris ban a lot from the Leviathans, trying to just neutralize what SOT is able to do up in that matchup. I still don't know if this Chernobog is going over to solo or duo, and I don't know if the Leviathans know it either, right? They're trying to peter out, like, is this a decent matchup? And the Fenrir actually is going to be locked in here, so Layers will have a good amount of engage for the team. So much CC already. Look at this. E-set has so much lockdown. Obviously, Kumba just is essentially a walking CC bot, and then the Fenrir is going to be able to get the beats down pretty consistently. But Yu Huang, the Jade Emperor, is going to be locked in for the second time now. We saw Baronic play it a few times, and now it's going to be probably in the mid lane, piloted by Shinto here, I would assume, and because we haven't seen it anywhere else, but only one showing, it's not going to be the best way to go off. But still, so much lockdown with this pick. It's interesting because it comes with a lot of safety as well. You can just go to that dragon in the sky, and you don't really have to deal with anything. You're CC immune and can just sort of watch the fight for a bit and figure out what you want to do. And that ultimate, for sure, something that not a lot of teams know how to play against right now, because we haven't seen Yu Huang play at the highest level just yet.
Now we're waiting to see what this last pick is for the Leviathans to maybe get a better idea of where this Chernobog and where this Yu Huang are going. Or not the Yu Huang, the Baron, I should say. And now with the Ho Yi locked in, it seems that we're going to be seeing a Baron support this time around, obviously going through. And then the Chernobog, they're going to be throwing himself over into the solo lane. So Yarkor gets to pilot the Global Hunter one more time. And the Ho Yi over for Zapman. And Ho Yi was a pick, and it's... In all honesty, it's great to see that Ho Yi is finally finding some more success, because I remember in phase number 3, only one game was won on this Ho Yi, and it was off the back of Zapman, and up until then, it was kind of just a curse with that god. You lock him in, you'd probably lost the game, but Ho Yi's been seeing much more success here in Season 9, especially up until phase 1, now jumping into phase 2 of the SPL. And a Vamana Hover, this is a god that Kirmi brought out. I'm going to say that Kirmi brought this one out during the Masters LAN, and then Captain Twig found a few games on it as well, and we've been seeing kind of be a little bit back and forth between being a reason that teams are winning games, and I can't really say being a reason that teams are losing games, but this god has had so many different change-ups into his style of play and so many different ways to see him played. But we won't even have to worry about that, because Bologna is going to be the final lock-in.
Yeah, I like that audible there. I think Vamana has a decent matchup into some of these ADCs, but what we're seeing here, Chernobog and Ho Yi, I can't imagine we'll be able to run free. What I did like about that Vamana is the fact that Leviathans don't have too much easy engage. It's pretty much just a wrap it up, or life of the party, you're setting up with the coffin, or a powwow pull. Besides that, there's no real go button for Leviathans, and if you did just go up into Colossal Fury, you would essentially not care about any of that and just run in. But you're up against double ADC late game, probably fighting into a Cursed Onk. Bologna, going to be a lot easier to execute here. You still are going to have a great matchup into this double ADC comp. You still have that CC immunity if you're trying to, juke out the Palau, things like that. And now I'm just looking at the Titans draft thinking, if Cyclone Spin can get late game on this Jingwei, we've seen how hard he can carry a game on this character. There's no one on the Leviathans that's going to be like unreasonably tanky. I mean, it's going to be just this Baron, and because supports just naturally get less farm right now, I imagine it's going to be just Jingwei food here. The Titans have a lot of CC, a lot of annoyance with SOT getting to the back line, and then just a Jingwei who's going to be able to crit pretty hard in this late game matchup.
Yeah, a lot of what we've been seeing in the first 15 to 20 minutes of play for supports has been get your Gauntlet of Thebes or maybe your first aura item, get your Spirit Robe online, and then just start maxing out your relics as fast as possible. And essentially, you're kind of just running around as this 2 to maybe 3 item support for at least 25 to maybe even 30 minutes of the game. And when your only tank is going to be a Baron who's only going to have your mage style of scaling when it comes to his prots, definitely not going to be nearly as tanky. So if you're the Tartarus Titans, do you then try and exploit that weakness as early as possible? Do you send layers maybe over to that dual lane, to that mid lane to try and get some of that early pressure for his team?
Yeah, usually with a comp like this, I would say that the Titans don't have to force anything because they'll simply have way more damage late game because they have 2 frontliners. But I think with this Fenrir, they're able to just force whatever they want, right? As long as Layers doesn't fall behind, as long as Panatom is not able to get out running on this Daji, there shouldn't be too much to try and stop this Fenrir from just saying, hey, even if you have beads, even if you have a CC ultimate, I'm going to come back with this Ragnarok maybe twice, a gank-regank situation, and just find some pressure for my team. But again, if Panatom gets off to a great start, they still have double ADC late game, and that's not easy to deal with.
Well, if you are Panatom in this case, you got the Daji, you got a couple of targets you can at least try and go for, specifically the E set that's not going to have any kind of CC immunity. So if you are Panatom, is the mid lane maybe where you're putting a little bit more of your pressure at?
I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard to pull Paul, though, because even if the Palau goes up, you can just drop Circle of Protection and say, I'm not going to beats. I'm just going to sit here. Then Panatom has to choose, like, do I go down and try to fight into Circle of Protection, which is almost never a good idea, or do I just stall up here, wait for my team, hope it runs out, that sort of thing. You're going to need anti-heal. It's just really difficult to try and kill E-Set right now, especially the way that this E-Set has been built recently with the Warlock Sash, that sort of thing. So I think right now there's so much peel from the Kumba and the Fenrir respectively in that 3v3 mid matchup. It's going to be hard to make sure you're able to, force as much as you can. But as long as your team's forcing beats for you and the Palau is the follow-up after the fact, Rongyu has a lot of setup as well. So if they're sticking around each other pretty well and playing off their beads grabbing, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, beads burning is going to be kind of the name of the game for Leviathans. That way Panatom's able to grab people with that Palau, or maybe Rongyu's able to find those single picks whenever it comes to those life of the parties out there. Where Tartarus Titans, they've got a lot of ways to burn beads of their own. Kumbhakarn, probably one of the most obnoxious gods to deal with when it comes to needing to be able to burn beads. So should be able to set up a lot for Layers over on this Fenrir. So when it comes down to that, what's kind of this, I don't want to necessarily tell you to give a time frame, but what's kind of the point where the Leviathans need to be even or ahead in order to kind of have themselves a better chance in these late game fights?
Well, again, I think the Leviathans have a solid late game because they have double ADC and they have a good amount of setup. It's just the fact that the Titans don't really have a one tank, right? If Aurora goes on to Rongyu and says, I'm going to be annoying, I'm going to, frontline versus frontline you should be able to blow up that Baron pretty quickly, and then the comp just sort of crumbles, right? No one is standing at the front line. You just have 4 damage dealers. You can stall, Panatom can stall in the Palau for a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. So I think Rongyu has to have perfect positioning, which, if you guys have seen the Leviathans play, he usually does. They should be just fine in that regard, but I imagine being the solo tank as a Baron is going to be quite difficult in this matchup, especially up against a Kumba and a Fenrir. So much displacement. You're going to have to be holding on to those beats.
How do you kind of place your stock in Yu Huang right now? Because we've gotten to see a couple of games out of him through Baronic with the Scarab, so obviously we've only got one team and one player of data so far, but maybe just from your experience on the Yu Huang, maybe we'll get to see if that changes in game number 2, but let's get through game number 1 first. The Atlantis Leviathans and the Tartarus Titans starts right now.
That's right, I'm excited to watch this one too. Thanks so much, J-Mac and Trelly, for breaking that one down for us on the desk. I enjoyed it. Little clappers over here. It's Gordon Miff. And Mifflin, I'm excited for this one. I think there's a lot of fun to be had, although it is worth, I think, discussing, and I'll let you choose between the two. The Yu Huang, because new god, always fun to talk about, and just how squishy the Leviathan's comp is going to be as a whole.
And I think even in tackling just the Yu Huang, we can tackle the rest of it by extension. But I do want to focus in on Yu Huang himself because I think he brings a very interesting playstyle, especially to mid. The ability to either be that pseudo-initiator in the early game. I think Yu Huang has got one of the strongest early game pressures just by nature of having a standard clear ability that also acts as a root, which really does help you out in these like small engagements in the mid lane. You're not really going to see too much action level 1 through 3, but level 1 through 3, Yu Huang is very, very good. Also gains access to these chain lightning auto attacks, which are going to help him out with clear a fair bit. But the issue with the Leviathans draft that I think Charlie was kind of alluding to a little bit, didn't really get too in-depth on it, was he's worried about the initiation for this team. Sure, you've got Rong Yu to act as that front line, and that's good. Life of the party is going to be a great way to start a fight. But if this Baron Samdi falls down, who's starting your engagement? Is it Panatom with a Palau? Or maybe it's Zapman with the dash in, cycle and spin, taking a little bit of damage here. But I think the main strength of Yu Huang is his late game teamfight initiation.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
His ultimate is just so strong. It comes out so quickly. It's great displacement. It's great damage output. And I think the Leviathan's going to be leaning heavily on that because of the nature of this squishier composition.
Now, that's the question I have for you, though. Do you favor that ult? Because I've heard the discussions of a little bit of both, right? A little bit of the damage conversation, but a lot more of the, hey, it moves people, that's what you care about. Is that really what it is? Like, okay, yeah, the damage is nice, but realistically, having that dueling dragons pulling someone towards your team maybe feels a little bit better. We can hold that thought. Rong Yu taking a lot of damage here. Has to play this one carefully. His Baron has some healing. But that's the other downside of this comp, and you had kind of highlighted it there. You know, you've got initiation that's going to come from the Yu Huang. You've got initiation that can come from Panatom. There's a lot to be said about what Rong Yu's going to be able to do, and unfortunately, every time we've seen it, you're not really talking about the Baron support in the limelight for the first few levels. It's like, okay, he's getting bullied, switch is flipped, cool, now he's bullying.
Yeah, around level 6, I think, is that inflection point where Baron Samdi's heal does enough damage just by base that you're feeling threatened by it, as well as bringing enough sustain to your own team that he's allowed to play that more aggressive styling that Baron Samdi really likes to get into. It's a similar power curve that you'll see in the soul lane or even in mid. He's not really always that strong early game selection. Blue buff invaded by the Tartarus, Titans, Layers, and SOT. Voltroned up, but Panatom able to at least find something for his ally. If Yarkor's willing, and he probably isn't, he could walk up all the way across the map to pick up that blue. But the main difference maker is Yarkor gets no farm there. Whereas SOT at least gets a split of blue buff.
And, I mean, in a way, Panatom's maybe happy because he just got a blue buff, right?
Junglers love that.
So he's maybe a little more ecstatic than where Hardcore is at. And that's something that is such a fun, I guess, talking point, because Solar Troll throughout Worlds on the Osiris and what we got to see, you know, I would argue through a lot of last year. Really good performance out of this lane, plays a lot of Warriors really well. I think this Bologna should theoretically look good. Hardcore spent half of last year as the carry for the Leviathans, and he was deadly. Is maybe even an understatement. Like, I mean, he was absolutely just taking it down anyone that he faced in lane, whether they were veterans or not. And now you get that same Hunter play in the late game, admittedly coming from the solo lane, better rotations that you're going to get out of a Chernobog, but lacking that tanky presence. I mean, one of the things that we saw, you know, through the last half of last year, through Season 7, he's just, first off, a really good mechanical Smite player, 100%. As it turns out. But, like, having him set up your fights and be that engage, it feels like it's been one of the better strengths for the Leviathans, and they're going to kind of miss out on that.
I think so, but they are going to have the ability to get Yarkor involved in the game a lot sooner than otherwise. That global presence from his ultimate, allowing him to maneuver the entirety of the map, will open up the door for the Leviathans to play through the dual lane if they so choose. Maybe even look towards these Gold Furies early on. You could start playing aggressively anywhere really on the left side of the map, whereas previously, Yarkor would not be able to get involved in those fights. Even if you build Teleport, you're generally not upgrading that until much later on. You're only really going towards your own towers. Or maybe going towards your blue, Layers and SOT, trying to stop them.
Oh, and they're going to be able to. That feels so bad. Sot walks in, and with the Scourge alone, strips that one away, gets some experience, and gets a blue buff. They didn't even stop that portion of it. And so that's going to be another small lead, and you can see it growing there, 6-5. For Sot, doesn't seem like maybe too much as of right now, but it feels like it's growing ever so slightly. Everywhere else has been relatively even. And there's a few things on my mind to maybe talk about, but immediately is the stacking items coming out for the mages, right? We've kind of went through the permutation. We saw a couple of them throughout the last few weeks, but it was always like starter into stacking or starter into something into stacking. This is one of the first times, I think we saw BMT do it the other day as well on Kukulkan, that it's immediately like, cool, we're just going to go Thoth.
Yeah, Book of Thoth, we are occasionally seeing it immediately followed up by Warlock Staff,
yeah.
so there's some decent itemization here. With the pace of the game generally being slower in 9.5, it allows you to go for these style of build paths that are really slanted for these late-game team fights. Book of Thoth, not only a massive power infusion up front, I believe it's around 100, but also being able to transfer some of your mana into power directly, get those stacks online early, 80 power to start off, but I was trying to incorporate the math of the mana transfer immediately. I'm not a mathematician, though. I think that it really does fit the style of play that we're currently seeing, and you can see it not just in mid. You're going to see this reflected in a lot of roles. We can see some stacking early on from support, Aurora going for Thebes. You'll probably see some Transcendence picks-ups, Yarkor, Panatom both picking that up for themselves. So with everybody kind of gentleman's agreement handshake, hey, let's wait for that 15-minute team fight, it allows you to go for these greedier builds.
Yeah. If the Devos nerf hadn't gone through, we'd probably be seeing stacking items almost across every build at that point, right? Like everybody is getting it. But unfortunately, no. Well, unfortunately, I guess it depends on how you feel about Devos. Its limelight this year was 2 weeks.
It was brief, but it was strong.
And then immediately thrown out the window. Ikaval picked up for Zap. You've got the chin size on the other side, but that can all wait. The Titans, the Leviathans, looking to collapse. Seems like it's going to grow into a 4-on-4. Solar Troll pulled back in by Wrong Yu's ult, and the damage is going to be there. Up into the sky goes Hardcore, and he comes crashing down. Chains from the Powwow pull into, and Shinto finds the damage necessary, but it's 1-for-1. The leap in from Sot makes sure Paul's able to find a kill, but now maybe staying too long. A couple more autos, that's all you need, and they're not going to be able to find it just yet. Hardcore, one shy, finally gets it, but gets punched into the air and comes crashing down. It's 2-for-2.
Wrong Yu still in the chase. Wants to at least take down Aurora for all this trouble. Will force the beads out from Shinto, and Zapman has made the rotation across the world.
And he's going to be able to help out, at least get the assist here.
How'd he get here?
He ran. He ran the long way, man, and
yeah,
it works out for him. You need something to make it a little more worth your time. Not often, unless they have a global ultimate. Like Jing Wei. I could see Jing Wei
like
rotating
back,
to that fight.
over,
Back
sure.
and fly over. Apollo, cool. Chariot across. Chernabog? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, ye. Running through the jungle. But he makes his way over there, gets himself an assist, and makes sure that the fight is a little more lopsided in favor of the Leviathans.
Gotta think Zap at least cleared a mid-wave for his troubles too, like on the way through the map, so shouldn't fall too far behind in farm. Even going for Ikavel in that first slot means he should have the advantage in the 1v1 up against Cyclone Spin. Hou-Yi, obviously, one of the strongest 1v1 characters in the game as far as hunters are concerned as well. So not a massive commitment from him, maybe about a half-level lead over to Cyclone Spin. Largest separator is that Cyclone Spin put some effort into stealing away a purple buff, put some concentrated attack there. Well, Panatom is forced to rotate and will pick that farm up for himself, but still zoning Zapman a little bit. So this Hou-Yi going to be on recovery duty for the next couple of moments. Surprised to see such a massive fight erupt around that blue buff. It's SOT who gets pulled in by Baron Samdi's ultimate. I thought for sure it's just Eagles rally away, right? Like, you don't want this engagement. Right? You don't want to get stunned out in front of 3 people. SOT likes his odds in the fight, gets pulled in, goes for the 3-man bludgeon, and nearly turns around the engagement right there. But the ultimate from Paul only connects with 1. The healing wasn't quite as strong as you might expect. That was a pretty quickly channeled circle protection, and the Tartarus Titans don't come out ahead on the engagement, but do on the farm.
And it's a fun, I think, showcase of where initiation for the Leviathans. I mean, you had called it. Like, Wrong Yu goes in, he's the life of the party. That's where he starts it. And then you have everybody waiting for you. I was honestly surprised when I saw Hardcore go up when he did. But you get the Powwow. You got pretty much everything in that fight. I was, admittedly, surprised by the damage output of Shinto early on as well. I think we got to see a lot from what the Yu Huang could do. And I think it's just whether or not that power curve, I want to say, stays consistent. Especially because the builds, again, kind of shifting. There's something to be said. First off, I immediately see Baron's Brew and want to talk about it because it's just good. But the Warlock staff for Paul completely finished. Shinto on that back gets the tier 2. Maybe, I guess, doesn't have enough for the tier 3 and buys the starter item instead of saving the gold to maybe back and get it sooner.
Yeah, if you're going for the starter item pickup immediately, you're probably concerned about a team fight happening shortly, and then looking at the top of the screen, we're about 9 minutes, 55 seconds in. Pyromancer's spawning up very soon, so maybe Shinto is concerned about whether or not the Tartarus Titans, who have had pressure on the right side of the map this entire game, will try and leverage that for an early Pyro, especially considering Paul is playing E-Set and has one of the best confirmations in the game. So Shinto will purchase Sands of Time just for that quicker power spike, a little bit more CDR, let you stay around in these team fights a little bit longer, get access to that survivability in your third ability a little bit more often. On the off chance the Tartarus Titans pull out the Pyro, because Warlock Staff's getting stacks is nice, but is not so important. The base stats of that item are very strong in their own right. Might as well just hedge your bets and make sure you've got the best odds in a team fight around an objective, but they're not there, and the Tartarus Titans are.
Well, now looking at it anyway, it doesn't seem like he's going to be behind too many stacks if that's where you're maybe the most upset with it. That's going to be the Pyromancer. You can see Chernoboggle used, and so they knew that it was going on, maybe just a little bit too late, dealing with the Trebuchet as it pushes down the mid tower. So a lot of pressure that is coming out from a little bit of both teams, but the Titans notably. That fight, we had mentioned it, goes in favor of the Leviathans by 1 kill. It has been slowly but surely growing in gold for the Titans. Not just that Pyromancer. I mean, they were 1K down or up after that last fight. They might go even further. They dive hardcore under the solo lane tower, and there's nowhere for him to go.
This is the downside of Hardcore's God Pool when he's not playing those traditional warriors. And when he's playing things like a Hunter or the Cthulhu, you're just going to get dove.
Well, Cyclone Spin's in a little bit of trouble looking to get dove. Oh, no! Almost in the ultimate, but the bleed. Oh, the bleed's enough to get him despite trying to fly away. Both relics, the ult and his life, taken away. And it looks like the Leviathans are gearing themselves up for a Gold Fury.
They don't have great confirmation, so if the Tartarus Titans can just close gap, and it looks like Aurora is on the way in, they should be able to stop it. Rongyu's too low. That's it.
Yeah, with layers here, could have turned into maybe a kill. They're gonna have to let that one hang. Maybe a little bit of a slow rotation? Question mark from Shinto, or just a hopeful Gold Fury from the Leviathans. I mean, that's a good kill, and given where the gold lead has been going, almost. What is that, 2,500 now that is in favor of the Titans. You need that. Like that would feel great if you get a 12-minute Gold Fury and equalize a little bit of this.
It would, and it's a low-risk call from the Leviathans. Hey, we'll pull it. We found our pick in the duo, so really it's unlikely that anybody shows up, and if they do, we can just disengage, and that's exactly what happens for the Leviathans. Aurora clears out the wave in duo, starts walking into the jungle, just pass through gold, and realizes, oh, they're on the objective, and the Leviathans are able to get out of dodge. But I think the Leviathans really do want to start making plays for the Fury itself, realizing that Paul's ultimate is coming back up or is already back up, and the Tartarus Titans will have an advantage around yet another objective. With Pyromancer already taken away, you can't split the map either. So the Leviathans are essentially getting proactive in a defensive way. Hey, we want to do gold because we don't want you to do gold, is essentially what they're telling me.
And they have to be careful. You had mentioned it, but like ults up for Paul and Cyclone again. You're really working on maybe the beads timers more than anything. 40 seconds left for Paul. About a minute left on both relics for Cyclone. They're going to have to pay attention, though. Aurora maybe caught out. Hey, are doing no damage to that Kumba. And there's something else to be highlighted there. Maybe not the biggest part of a Kumba kit, but there is an attack speed slow on the Yawn if you get woken up early. And as it's going, you see the Spectral Armor already picked up. There's on Sot a Sovereignty, so you've got physical prots and crit protection. That's going to feel pretty nice whenever Hardcore gets involved in a lot of these team fights. Which doesn't seem like it's going to be sooner rather than later. Ronggyu is in trouble. Solar Troll chasing down as many people as he is willing to. 4 members of the Leviathans falling back under just the eyes of the Bologna. Gold Fury started up, Circle Protection charge, and popped. And that's going to be Titans getting the Gold Fury. The fight afterward, though, is a little bit more of a shake-up. Sot gonna get pulled in here, and they're gonna have the follow-up damage. Zap gets credit for the kill, but it's 1 for gold, and the Titans are looking to turn away.
All they have to do is continue walking out. Aurora, some slightly goofy pathing, actually does get caught a bit, but should be able to disengage from here. Paul needs some help.
Yeah, a lot of damage. There's the Aegis, there's the beads, and that keeps him alive. Oh, the Leviathans wanted more, but the health bar is not quite there. Not yet tanky enough for Ronggyu to dive a tier 2. 14.5 minutes in, even though they were nerfed slightly in the bonus balance. These towers still hurt pretty hard. and something that I think these teams are having to play around too cautiously. And so unfortunate for the Leviathans. I mean, a fight, you get the kill. You're now 3,500-ish gold behind, 34. So you have to play a little more cautiously. These items, you've got a full Ob Shard online for Paul, so he's going to be hitting harder. And now, I mean, looking at Solar Troll's build, he's got the Prots online. He's going immediately into a Bruiser kind of style. And he chased off 4 people on his own.
Yeah, and when he gets involved, Stone Cutting Sword will strip away protections and instill them into SOT himself. Speaking of SOT, it's not often you'll see a Bellona out-rotate a Chernobog. Do that heroic teleport, crossing gap across the map. I looked up and I saw, okay, Yarkor's ultimate's on cooldown. He must be joining the fight shortly. But he was still inside the Soul Lane, so curious to see where that actually landed. And, well, the Tartarus Titans, with a numbers advantage, are able to take the objective. Ooh. That's exactly what the Leviathans were concerned about. That's why they were getting aggressive.
Oh, well, speaking of aggressive, they're going to do it here. Mez into stun, into Powwow. And then a self-banish from Shinto gets him away from the damage. Can Panatom survive long enough to get through this? Layers chases him down. But it does seem like the numbers are going to be on their side. Panatom gets out alive. And the Titans are going to fall back. They force a lot there, though. Beads, Aegis still down for Paul. You'd think that would maybe color some danger. Zap has not rotated over, so it's a 5v4 no matter what. Pyromancer started up. Pyromancer taken down. The Titans push this gold lead. They're going for a Fire Giant.
They have to. Zapman's pushing out on the left-hand side of the map, and they realize they found a TKO. So Rong Yu and Yarkor have got to slow this down.
Now they're going to do their best. Rong Yu is walking forward. The Fire's getting low circle protections there. Titans secure that one, and now they're looking for kills afterward, too. Hardcore taken down. Rong Yu joins him in the ground, and the others have to turn tail and run to stay alive from the onslaught of the Titans.
Zapman can't even go for the Tier 2 tower. Has to be concerned about a teleport from SOT. So instead, strips away some farm on the map, able to take a red buff for themselves. And yet again, this composition from the Tartarus Titans just saying, hey, if we pull a lead, we're going to bully you out every single time. That's twice now we've seen that win condition established. On the Gold Fury, it's SOT zoning 4 on his own. This time around, Aurora and SOT work together to push out 2. And it's an immediate fallback to the Pyro. They notice Zapman on the map, and the Tartarus Titans say, okay, well, maybe we just go for the Giant itself. Paul did not use Circle Protection for the smaller of the 2 objectives, so still had it for confirmation there. The Leviathans, the only thing they can do once that ultimate is dropped by ESET is win the fight, because they're not getting the fire.
Oh, Panatom, this pathing just is not for you. Walks into the Tier 2 in mid, but the Titans were waiting. Aurora has to drop that and let it go to somebody else, but Panatom's not escaping. Shinto, lucky for him, he's going to have a small ability to get away, but immediately into a Mez. The beads are there. But again, the damage, the CC, and the follow-through of the Titans is just too much to handle. Tier 2 is going to get looked at. It's going to get taken down, and they are up 7-5 and 6,000 gold knocking on the door of the Phoenix.
And they don't even need SOT for this. He decided to go steal away a speed buff. No defense from the Leviathans. Zapman at least able to take out a Tier 2 on the left-hand side of the map, exposing a bird. So if the Leviathans are able to win out cleanly in a team fight, maybe could break the base of the Tartarus Titans, but base of the Leviathans already broken and 20 seconds left on Shinto's respawn. It means the Titans have got free reign of the map. We're about a minute out from Gold Fury respawning. Gotta imagine that's going to be on the minds of the Tartarus Titans, as they're already headed to the left side of the map to clear out the 2 remaining towers of the Leviathans. And we have not seen the Leviathans' 5-man engagement. We have not seen them grouped up. It's not been an even fight even once. You'd think the Leviathans would be the proactive component, utilizing the global presence of Yarkor.
I mean, hell, because Zap rotated to solo
he
like
rotated
8
solo.
minutes in.
You'd expect them to continue that pacing, but instead it's been the Tartarus Titans getting to these team fights first, choosing where they're happening, and it's always been on top of an objective. It's either been at the Pyro or the Gold, where the majority of the action has started, and if the Tartarus Titans are allowed to establish defensive positioning, they're just going to win out by nature of their composition. The Leviathans, on the other hand, now have got to play defense. Their defense is not poor. Shinto is going to be very adept at keeping his minion waves out. Zapman has great space control. Rong Yu can initiate from the safety of his own Phoenix. Might not come up, though, if Yarkor falls.
Oh, Layers is going to try his best. That tower only gets so much done. Panatom's here. The chains are going to be good, and that's going to be a pull and a kill. Layers taken down, and they should be able to get this tower as well. They lose Tier 1, Tier 2 on left. And with a minute left in the power play, only 3 people here, though, for the Titans. They don't feel too confident being able to take down another Phoenix, even with 2 people gone. Fall back? Hey, guess what? You get an Oni Fury. And lucky for them, they had just filled their obelisk, so they have a Trebuchet waiting in that left lane. And any given time, they can just decide to push that one down and potentially find control over the Phoenix, maybe even with the next Fire Giant buff.
Yeah, I think we might see the Trebuchet used essentially as a pseudo-Oni Fury wave. The Tartarus Titans could send it down the left side of the map and then group up on the Fire Giant.
Yeah.
And just try and, you know, split up the Leviathan's attention. If that Trebuchet is left alone for long enough, it could even potentially take a Phoenix on its own. But Zapman has shown a propensity to rotate all the way across the map, so I'm sure he wouldn't be too unwilling to clear out the Trebuchet and then rejoin his team. I am concerned, though, for the Leviathans, and it's a concern I share with the desk, is how well are they going to be able to execute on this composition in a late-game team fight, especially now from this significant of a disadvantage.
Yeah.
It's already a very high execution composition because you don't have a standardized front line. But 10,000 gold down, it just became a little bit more difficult to act on it. Are the Leviathans willing to put up a defense around the Fire Giant? If the answer is yes, you need to get to the Fire Giant first. The best defense is a good offense every single time you're playing against an E-set. The Leviathans grouping up on the right-hand side indicates to me that they are willing to fight here. But if they allow the Titans to just pull out the fire, there's not much the Leviathans can do to fight back.
Yeah, in that awkward area where, as you said, you want to get there first. They're not there first. Mez onto 2 from Aurora, and then the follow-up from Solar Troll. They're looking to dive deep. Not too deep, though. Titans play this one safe. Do get some relics. Beads gone now from Panatom. And Wrong You not having theirs available either means that that's going to be a little bit easier. Good reaction time. I have to give the shout out to Zap, because it's not often that Akumba will move forward that quickly, go for the Mez, and you're up in the air and out. So I just, shout outs to him. Good reactions.
It is, and we'll see how he reacts to another Fire Giant play from the Tartarus Titans. Fire Giant pulled out 22 minutes in, and no presence from the Leviathans means this will go over for free. Maybe a call of faith from the Leviathans saying that their defense on base is actually pretty strong once we get to see it. We haven't just yet. Mid Phoenix respawning now. Only one more fire minion wave in mid to contend with. The Leviathans done a great job of pushing out this left side as well. The Tartarus Titans will not reset themselves. Instead, will maintain their push. If they can get over towards this mid Phoenix sooner rather than later, they can get it while it's still hobbled. It's a split push attempt. And SOT will win this 1v1.
Yeah, and oh, wow, handily at that. I mean, the bludgeon isn't going to connect. The wall has to get used. Hardcore gets out with their life, but it's a TKO. Has to walk back to base. Layers and Sot with fire minions right here should be able to get this mid Phoenix. You just got to hit it a couple of times, or not at all.
They don't got it.
Yeah, Shinto and Panatom apparently enough to zone them out.
Wrong You takes a little bit of damage. It's a slow play from the Tartarus Titans. Not this time. Engage from the Leviathans.
Yeah, they're going to get good damage out there on the Layers. They find the chain, but it only pulls in Sot. Beads used by Layers. CC immunity is going to be gone. Circle of protection dropped. Wrong U's low. There's life of the party, and it's trying its best to pull someone in, but it's not getting the land that it needs. Wrong U taken down. Panatom shortly after. Sot trades their life out for the Eagles rally and the stun. But it ends up setting the team up for maybe an easy Phoenix siege. Only 3 carries that they have to deal with. And sometimes it's easy to say only. They hit hard. So Paul, Layers, Cyclone have to play this carefully if they want to be able to get aggressive.
Cyclone acting as split push as Aurora forces the beads off of Shinto. It's Layers in now. Defensive capacity lost for the Yu Huang, and Fenrir's in.
Yeah, good damage and barely enough to get out of there. Not enough distance though. Hardcore goes down. Shinto, 1 auto, 1 kill, and this is looking like a potential deicide. Zapman is looking at least turn 1 around. He's not going to go down that easily. Cyclone calls for help though, and is able to stay alive. Got some sustain from the Fire Giant. Not a lot, though. Wrong Hue respawned. Panatom's back as well. Cyclone seems to be too low to maybe get as aggressive as they'd like.
Yeah, not able to push their way in just yet, but the Tartarus Titans, with the help of a minion wave, should be able to take out this right side Phoenix. Even Panatom, fresh off the respawn, not willing to step forward, but has maybe given up too much space. Wrong You falls.
Wrong You erased from the game. Panatom makes it up onto the pillar. But how much can this Powwow even do? If you pull anybody, is it going to be enough to get you out of there? No, the Titan, with no one left to defend it and 2 Phoenixes down, the Titans are going to win game number 1.
It just felt like the Leviathans didn't even get an opportunity to play this game, didn't it? One proactive play early on, that rotation from Zapman,
and that
feels
was
like the last time the Leviathans had their hands on the wheel, right? Ever since then, it was completely driven by the Tartarus Titans. Great composition to play around these objectives, good space control. It was 11 minutes in, the first Pyromancer falls. 2 minutes later, it's the Gold Fury. Immediately after that, another Pyromancer, right? It's just continual objective, objective, objective. And the Leviathans were not quick enough to rout them. They weren't able to stop this onslaught of aggression.
And unfortunately for them, I mean, like a massive lead. Like even after that rotation early, Titans were up 1,000 gold, and then you close your eyes for maybe a second, they're up 2,000 gold, and then they get a Pyromancer, Gold Fury, they're up 3,500, things like that. Like it just kept slowly going in their way. But hey, you don't win Masters for nothing, right? This is a team that knows what they're doing. We'll see though. Will the Leviathans bounce back and show us some of that world champion talent? We'll have to find out right after this.
I am Hercules.
Cupid!
Lightweight, baby.
Whee! Bye!
Victory.
Vomit.
Lightweight, baby.
No! Must keep fighting.
I am the hero you need. Lightweight, baby. Perfect. I am Hercules.
Welcome back to the Smite Pro League, brought to us by our good friends over at Alienware for powering not just the PCs that the pros are playing on, not just the PCs that the production are using, but also even this laptop that I get to use right here. And you yourself can get one of these awesome machines and see what all Alienware has to offer to you by going over to smitegame.com/Alienware and using code AWSmite09. Check out all the cool specs on the PCs that are being used all throughout our studio and by the players at their own home. Thank you so much to Alienware for coming back in Season 9 of the SPL. Make sure to follow them on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram, and go to AlienwareArena.com to see what else Alienware has to offer for you. Once again, Alienware, thank you so much for coming back to us one more time in this season of the SPL. J-Mac, I got Trelly back with me on the desk. And the Tartarus Titans just kind of steamrolled through the Atlantis Leviathans in Game 1. Some of the struggles that we were bringing up on the pregame was lack of initiation for the Atlantis Leviathans, maybe lack of peel, lack of true tankiness, and, well, all those kind of came back to bit the Leviathans in Game 1.
Yeah, I feel as if the comp just didn't... I don't think Hunters are in a position anymore where it's just like, okay, we have 2 ADCs, we're going to get to late game and we'll be able to pop off. Yarkor was not able to find much success at all in this lane because there's constantly a Fenrir in their lane. There's constantly a Bologna just outboxing you so far ahead in that lane, respectively. So SOT got off to a great start on the back of players, making sure to camp. And Chernobog just cannot survive that, right? Chernobog is not going to be able to sit there in lane, so you never get to that late game portion where it's like, okay, we only have one frontliner, but we have so much damage. They didn't really have that much damage towards the end. I mean, if you're looking, it's 5 to 6 right now, but the gold 7,000 in favor of the Titans, and that was just so much better farming and objective play by the Tartarus Titans there. So I imagine either changing up the strategy where Panatom is constantly over in that solo lane trying to help Yarkor stay even in farm, or just getting Yarkor in a safer, any style of pick that can just live in lane, because SOT didn't even build tanky. There wasn't like a spectral armor. It was like the Sov into Berserker Shield with a stone cutting. Like he was essentially ADC Bologna in that lane with a couple hybrid items, and you know, he did die pretty quickly towards the end, but was able to output so much damage just because of how many ganks were coming his way and that sort of thing.
And I think that one highlight that we got to watch from at least SOT's perspective, where he's sitting under the Palau under a tier 2, waiting to be pulled in, and then just waits patiently for Panatom to finally dismount from the Palau, use that Eagles Rally to chase down, and you just see Aurora waiting on the other end of the team fight, waiting for somebody to walk up to either Mez or Root. I mean, the chain CC, the frontline presence out of the Tartarus Titans, just too much for the Leviathans in game number 1. And it might be back to the drawing board. I mean, Shinto is able to put out a lot of damage on this Yuwong, which is something that we've been saying about Yuwong in general, is once you get him to late game, he's going to do a lot of damage, especially with that first ability. You can really shred through some of those protections if you have the enhanced version, get a lot of quick burst out there, but that doesn't help as much when the rest of your team's not very tanky. And I think I kind of want to go back to one of the plays under that mid lane Phoenix where Rongyu was trying to pull somebody with the coffin, kept turning so he can get the most value, and then ended up pulling nobody, and some of his teammates died because of it. We'll jump into Picks and Bans game 2 to see if the Leviathans maybe shift away from this double hunter style of play.
Yeah, again, I think that the Leviathans have one of the best solo laners in the world in Yarkor. He is also pretty solid at ADCs. He used to play in that role and was one of the best ADCs in the world at the time, but I don't think you can survive up against the Bologna right now as a Chernobog. I don't think you're going to be able to get to that late game portion unless, of course, number 1, Panatom comes over there and constantly camps you, or just pick a safer character in that regard, because if Yark's able to help out with Rongyu, stand at the front line and make sure that the carries can do what they're supposed to, Shinto is doing crazy damage. The Yuwang looks solid. Those ults were connecting. It's hard to be the solo tank Baron, as you mentioned, and Aurora was having a field day on this Kumba. Yeah. I mean, the damage is not going to be showing there. The engages aren't going to be showing in the stat line, but trust me, Aurora was up, standing in the front of everyone, mezzing, just being an absolute annoyance. We missed a couple bans there as I was talking, because they were just rapid firing, but nothing out of the ordinary. And most notably, the E set is going to be taken away, so Paul's not going to be able to run that one back in the mid lane. Having a good target for Panatom to constantly kill is going to be, you know, what the Leviathans are looking for, and E set was not going to be that case. So taking that away is going to be pretty solid as they first pick the Cherno, and once again, the Titans answer back with that Jingwei.
Yeah, making sure that Cyclone has something that he's comfortable on, something that's performed, and because the E set was the change-up in the bans, that then leaves the Nemesis open, and Layers is going to be able to pick that one up right away. So a slight change-up in the Titan style of draft, at least, moving from the Fenrir to the Nemesis. Now we're going to have to see a new look out of Paul in that mid lane. But my question is, are the Leviathans going to run the same style of comp that they had? Last time, if I remember, it was Dodgy and Yu Huang that got picked up by the Leviathans. We'll see if that ends up being the same case this time around.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what they've been practicing. Has this Hunter in the solo lane been the only strat they've been cooking up, or will they have something else in the back burner? This could be a Chernobog for Zapman, obviously, or could just be going back to Yarkor, and then Rangyu will be the solo tank in that regard, and they'll have to play around that. So we'll have to see where they're going. It looks like they are going to be hovering the Oleron here, so not going to be the Yu Huang run back. Did have a solid performance, but I think Oleron's going to have a much better time into the Nemesis specifically. You can just drop the Sanctified Field whenever she tries to engage, knock up the shield if you need to, and stay as far away as possible.
Leviathans are taking some time, and they will end up stripping the Kumbhakarn away from Aurora, not having the funnest time dealing with the sleeping giant himself. So the Leviathans will draft that and the Oleron along with it. So now you have a lot of lockdown on the side of Leviathans just in these 2 picks alone. We're taking a massive upgrade just from the Dodgy and the Baron that was last time around. Now you've got the Mez, the Root, and that Sanctified Field from Oleron. The Titans, though, will continue to reprise their same solo lane pick. Bellona being picked up 3rd time.
Yeah, I will say if you are going to have one solo tank on a team, Kumba is much better than Baron. I think that as long as Kumba's able to get to the back line or just stand in front of the squad, so much harder to push into a Kumba than it is to a Baron, right? Baron has to run away and try to juke. Kumba has just that AoE mez. Everyone is just completely sleeping, and if they break out of it, their attack speed's slow. They're slowed as well. It's just so annoying to deal with. So I like this a lot better, taking that away from Aurora because he had such a solid game, and making sure that your team has a great amount of peel set up and everything you really need. Fenrir is going to be the ban for the Titans. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want to have to deal with getting their beads burned, that sort of thing. And it looks like the Daji is still open if Panatom did want to go to that. Obviously, Nemesis doesn't have a great time into it. The Erlong is going to be banned away, so the Titans are not too worried about the Daji.
No, that doesn't seem that was a major concern of theirs. And with the Nemesis and the Bellona picked up, that means that they wouldn't be able to grab it for themselves unless they were trying to do something wild. Now, starting to go through some of the old picks of the Titans to see maybe what support would come through, considering Khepri's been their most picked and one of their most successful supports, at least for Aurora. Now with the Kumbhakarn taken away, the Emoji, Xingqian, and Ganesh, it will be a Kabrakan locked in for the Tartarus Titans going over to Aurora this time around.
Yeah, it looks like that will be the option. I was going to think maybe Atlas, but Atlas doesn't have a great time in Akumba. You can just immune that pull with Groggy Strike whenever you really need. So looks like the Daji is going to be hovered here. So the Titans, they're not too worried about it, right? They're just saying, hey, we have this. Oh, they are going to switch off, so never mind. I was going to say, the Titans didn't ban it away because, it didn't have the greatest performance in Game 1, but it looks like they are going to go back to the Daji. It was a quick thought of, hey, maybe we want to Baka here, and then immediately back to that Daji. We know that Panatom has a solid Daji. We know that the pulls can always be solid, and it looks like they are going to go with the traditional front line here. So the Chernobog is going to go over to Zapman in that duo lane, and this is what I wanted. I feel like Yarkor can just battle against this Bellona, have a great time in lane, be much safer against these ganks, and the Titans are just going to grab Yu Huang for themselves.
Yeah, so now we'll have our third team and our third mid laner to pick up the Yu Huang, this time going over to the belt of Paul on the Tartarus Titans. And the Leviathans, a lot of the strength from their success in seasons and phases in years past has been playing traditional style of Smite, finding what traditional picks work in each role respectively, and just playing it to the best of their ability, and that sometimes playing it to the best of anybody in the league's ability. So going back with making sure to have a normal support out there with the Kumbhakarn, normal quote-unquote. It's been a while since we've seen Kumbhakarn himself be away into the meta, going with a traditional tank like King Arthur, and then making sure to get your carry something out there. Shinto has been a major proprietor of this Ola run. Panatom finally able to find a pretty good carry for himself in this Daji. But with this Leviathans draft, do they have what it takes to scale up to the Tartarus Titans in this game?
Yeah, I love this draft. I like it a lot better than what we saw in Game 1, and I think if the Leviathans are able to execute, if Panatom is able to match what Lairs was doing last game, essentially, right? Just sitting in that solo lane, getting SOT ahead, that cannot happen again. There's no way that the Leviathans are going to let Yarkor get camped by Lairs this time around on the Nemesis. You got to put a stop to that. Make sure this King Arthur is able to stay at least even, not too far behind. If it's 2-3 deaths by 10 minutes, 12 minutes, it's not going to be a good look. But I think the Leviathans comp, what they've done here, is just so much stronger. They have a great team fight with Palau and Sanctified Field. Kumba is just going to stand in the middle and be, get beats essentially for free. We saw Aurora do it a few times where he just blinked in, mez, and then just stares at you. And you have to go, am I about to get ulted? I don't know. I'm going to beads anyways. And then it's a free beads, and it's going to help out the team fight after the fact.
Yeah, I can't even begin to count how many times we saw Aurora just walk up to Shinto or walk up to Zapman, just pop that mez and stare at them menacingly, just waiting, say, are you going to beads? Are you going to not? And more often than not, it was a beads. The Yu Huang had a strong performance, at least out of Shinto last game. He was top of the damage charge for his team by quite a large margin. I mean, I think he was double over anybody else on the team. How do you feel that that's going to mesh with Paul in this play, at least for the Titans?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if it's any character in Smite right now, I imagine Paul has probably, played it quite well, especially Mages right now. He just looks so solid. So I think he's probably been practicing the Yu Huang, and if he can just replicate a little bit of what Shinto was able to do last game on this pick, off the back of a winning match, obviously, so you have some momentum on your side as well. I think Paul's going to be just fine. They do have a lot of setup for it, so I think it's going to be just fine.
Game number 2 is ready to go between the Titans and the Leviathans. Can the Levi's bring it back to a game 3? We'll have to find out right now.
Yeah, thanks so much, J-Mac and Trelly. Of course, it's me and Miff one more time. Clappers again already. You're not even going to say anything.
Well, you were doing your thing. I didn't want to break your flow.
But you like golf claps in the background?
Well, not golf claps. Those feel sarcastic. These are enthusiastic clappers.
What's the difference? Okay.
It's like
what's the
speed,
difference?
power, intention,
violence,
all of that. And I was bringing all of that.
Well, I've lost all train of thought. Oh,
That's
I know
why
where,
I was avoiding
I know where I was going to go. Yu Huang played
Okay.
once again, this time by Paul. So, as the desk had said, third game for him, third mid laner playing him. Has not won as of yet.
Well,
Do you
Baronic
think,
got a win.
Did
Just
he get
one.
a win?
Just
I thought
one.
it was.
First game was a win.
You're
You're fact checking me. Why don't you just respect me?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they're. Oh yeah, you're right. He played it twice. I completely forgot.
Yeah,
Never mind.
I
Fourth
casted
game.
it.
3 of those. Yeah, I know, right? And so I shouldn't have doubted you. So he's got 1 win.
Yep.
Doesn't feel too great though. I think in the grand scheme, feels great for the Scarabs. I think it was a good win when they got it. But as a whole, it's kind of the question: do you think it's around the Yu Huang? Because the damage from Shinto last night is obviously enough here. Oh my God, Panatom taken down, and Paul answers the question for you. First blood online for the Titans.
So you remember last game when I said like levels 1 through 3 is a really great time to be a Yu Huang? That right there is exactly why. Fully cultivated Dow, land the root, damage output immediately afterward. Best case scenario, you're also hitting the wave, which is exactly what Paul does. Just tough stuff as Shinto dropped low as well. If this were 9-4, Shinto probably just dies, but Lair's not willing to step into a tower just yet, as they do a ton of damage. Shinto is able to maintain his life, but not his relic. Beads lost for the mid laner, and on an Ola run, that might just be a death sentence.
I mean, yeah, you have to play it carefully. A pause coming out here, and we can see Shinto. This is what it looks like when you're fearing for your life. By the way,
you're probably wondering how I got here.
You're right under there. Yeah, the record scratch comes through. We're about to watch like the full-on feelings. Like, what exactly is it that Shinto is feeling? And unfortunately, it's not great things. And so we're in this weird position where now we're looking at first blood onto a team that has momentum, onto a team that was doing really well. We didn't get to see a lot of proactive play from the Leviathans. Bede's already down for Shinto. He's an Ola run without his ult.
Oh, you restarted your count. I'm ahead.
Well, I don't know where I reset it. Either way, does not feel like the start the Leviathans would have wanted to this game.
I mean, simple as that, right? Getting first blooded on first wave, never a great start.
Yeah, that's usually
just straight up.
immediately downhill.
Hard to break down what's happened so far as we're like a minute into the game. So if you guys missed it, if you were getting snacks or something, Panatom died. He got slammed by Yu Huang on wave 1 and immediately died for taking up the wave. Daji, deceptively pretty weak at level 1 just because of the fact that if you auto-attack anybody once or hit somebody with 1,000 cuts, you're applying a very weak dot to them. And with 9-5, with the minion waves being as strong as they are, that dot is just keeping minion aggro on you the entire time, which is what happened to Panatom. He hit somebody once, and he got rooted, and he's like, oh, I'm stuck, and 6 minions are staring at me, and 2 gods. He died, if you guys were wondering.
and in case, just to like reiterate it, Panatom died first way. Okay, just making sure like everyone's got that straight. Everyone knows what's going on. Other than that, Shinto's been a little bullied since then, right? Because he lost his beads.
We've recapped
the whole game. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you, though. I think I saw a Warlock staff start there for Paul as opposed to the Book of Thoth last time and what we saw for Shinto. So immediately going for maybe a little more health. You said, last game that it as an item at base, even without
base stats are good.
Still feels really good. So does that feel like a good start? I mean, we had talked about it. Stacking items right now feel fine because 9-5 has slowed the game down, at least the early game down a little bit. That gives you more time, and a lot of the time when you ask these pro players like last year, times before that, you wouldn't want to go for any of these items because it took too long, right? They were like, yeah, like Warlock Staff is great, but why would I do that when I can just buy X, Y, and Z and actually be there for the fights? Now the fights aren't happening until, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plus minutes.
Yeah, so that means you can go for these more greedy style of builds. I would argue that Warlock Staff base stats probably feel better as like a third item or maybe even a second item, percent penetration. Not exactly the most valuable stat line at level 1 because nobody's really got any defense just yet, but you really want to get those stacks rolling as soon as possible, and in doing so, you're going to pick it up first overall. Delaying your starter item as well, we will likely see a similar style of build as what we saw from Shinto in Game 1. Wouldn't be surprised if Paul Falls is up by a Book of Thoth, and then immediately into a Sands of Time, upgrade into a Pendulum a little bit later on. So it's just, which stat line do you want sooner? Do you want that survivability? Do you want to be able to utilize Yu Huang's 3 as an aggressive tool? Do you want to be Goomba stomping people?
Yeah.
If yes, probably go Warlocks first.
All the Warlocks, we see it there. I also want to talk about the start for Shinto, because it's not necessarily something outlandish, although Gilded Arrow hit by the nerfs from, 7 to 3. 7, again, a 9-4. The amount of procs you're getting, about 1 a wave, if even, you're feeling pretty good about that. Feels like a good number. 9-5 comes in. All of a sudden, you're getting 2, 3 procs a wave. 7 is giving way too much money. So the nerf makes sense. But that made it disappear pretty heavily because, admittedly, it was just really, really good. There was no reason not to get it if you could get it before. But does it still feel good enough here for Shinto? I mean, obviously to pick it up, but is it going to help this Oleron feel consistent in mid?
It's going to help out a lot with your boxing potential. Oleron is very, very strong at auto-attacking, especially early on. That second ability, which is likely maxed out first. Not only very good at clear, but great in these fights. Good attack speed stem as well, so Gilded Arrow gonna find some value here. For those of you at home who are the math monsters and you want to figure out, okay, what's the value lost from 7 to 3? Previously, in like 9-4, you were getting upwards of 1,000 gold on average per game just from Gilded Arrow passive. Now it's closer to like 500 or 600.
Which, honestly,
it's not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
500 gold for free?
Yeah, for free gold. That's going to be lining your pockets. Maybe setting things up for you. And speaking of setups, looks like Panatom wants a little fight on the layers. Kumba as well on the left-hand side, maybe trying to get aggressive with the Cabrakan. Their fights all around, a little bit of damage here, a little bit of damage there. No one just yet standing out. Powwow available for Panatom. Doesn't have many great targets. There's the Sanctified Fields from Shinto, though. Forced to use them defensively and stay alive. With the beads back, that's maybe one thing left that Shinto can live through, but a lot of danger in mid lately.
No joke. Sanctified Field might be like the only ultimate I'd rather save, right? Like generally it's, hey, if I've got an ultimate that can save my life, I'm going to use that instead of my beads.
Yeah.
Sanctified Field's so important to Oleron's kit that I think had he been given the option, he probably would have just used his beads, but Layers is faster than Oleron. Layers is also a higher level than this Oleron, so if you just beads the slow, the Nemesis is still going to stick to you, so it had to be the Sanctified Field to save his life. Shinto losing out on a major team fight tool and a major survivability tool.
Yeah, especially with how, I mean, First Blood went, again, very explosive very early on compared to what we've experienced so far on these recent patches. But everything else has fallen pretty much into place where you would expect it, right? Like you're going for the stacking items to try and make sure that you can get those pretty neat power curves. You've got what looks like it might be another Transcendence for Panatom coming up, things like that. While the teams are not, I don't want to say playing slow. I think Layers and Paul are looking for kills. They're just not going to overextend for them. And as they've been getting aggressive, you had highlighted it, that 10-minute mark was really what we saw. I think some of the power start to flourish last game around that Pyromancer. I might see something here. Layers, left side jungle, looking to cut off Wrong Yu. There's the walls, and that's the lockdown, and that's all they need. Epic uppercut comes through. Wrong Yu gets the dash, but it's not going to get you very far. There's going to be the last auto. Goes the Cyclone this time around, and they're able to almost, but not quite, strip away the purple buff as well. So a kill, but they don't quite get the invade.
Perfect chain CC, though. I mean, it was gross. I can only imagine how frustrating that is for Rongyu, who had to yawn 5 times before anybody went to sleep, actually. Kumakarna will fall down, lose access to his passive, so could put a massive target on his back yet again. In going for Heavenly in that first slot, he won't have access to Phantom until second Relic, even if he elects to pick it up. So Aurora could just rotate back through and do that yet again. keep your eyes on the Tartarus Titans. I think they will be the proactive players going forward from here. Paul still sitting on a significant lead. Wrong U probably starting to fall a little bit behind now. Has to go for the slower style of build as well, going for Thieves in that first slot as opposed to the Spirit Robe that Aurora has picked up for himself. Means that the Tartarus Titans have got a pretty quick pace to this one. A nice steal away on the Greater Scorpion for the Leviathans. Should get a bit of global farm back for the boys.
Speaking of pace, actually, maybe we might have to
He's gonna do it
belay
again.
those thoughts. Yeah, things are not looking great. Leviathans, though, able to get out of there. Confirm all their buffs. They're feeling fine. Pace, though. You know, we've talked a lot about Ikaval in the last couple of days. A lot of chin size, some Aussie talk in there. Dominance isn't usually high on that list of items we get to speak of. I feel like it was when it came out, and it's been on the back burner since then, but that is where Zapman has gone. First item. And so you mentioned it like Ikaval is kind of the I want to box, I want to fight. Where is he going with this one?
I mean, Dominance is just 25% penetration on every single one of your auto attacks. We saw Barracuda go for this build a little bit earlier. I think it's just, hey, I want my auto attacks to be high value. I might not swing the most often, but when I do, it's going to do a whole lot of damage. Looking at the composition of the Tartarus Titans, Aurora likely going to struggle up against this Dominance, especially with the massive infusion of physical defense he's gotten from Spirit Robe. You've got pretty decent upgrade options from here. I am curious to see where Zapman goes. Generally, I think Aussie would likely be the option. Get a little bit of lifesteal and attack speed in that second item. We have seen in the past a Blood Forge in that slot, meaning that you'll hit very hard, but not very often.
Yeah.
So it's just this new age style of build where these players are trying to figure out what exactly works on the current patch. Because,
yeah,
truthfully, crit doesn't feel as good as it once did. Deathbringer having a
especially
massive
with some of the nerfs, yeah,
down to 25%. Spectral Armor gets a buff, removing even more of that crit damage. You probably want to be able to deal with the front line. Dominance is a decent option.
It's going to be fun, like you said, just to watch how this shakes out. Aussie, you had mentioned it. That's just a good item. I like the passive. It's got good stats on it. Oh, these, yeah, looking like it might be a Wind Demon. Well, hey, at least the Aussie, you know what, that Aussie talk isn't going nowhere. Cyclone Spin does seem like he's going to be building into
Gotta
it.
hope.
And yeah, I know, watch this be, what, Executioners in that build? It's just, I don't know. That's a good item. I like the passive. Feels pretty solid. We'll see, I guess, how well it will work out. Not just for Cyclone, but how this build path works out for Zap on the other side. Heavy hitter, slow autos is currently what it is going to be. I'm also keeping my eyes on Wrong U. Last time around, there was a lot of rotation talk about Chernobog with his ult, which can still happen because of Zapman, but a lot of it was, cool, where's Hardcore going to be involved in the fights versus where we're going to see Solo or Troll? How are they going to balance out? Now you've got a more traditional frontliner. Not only that, but it's the King Arthur we've been seeing a little more often. It feels like this should be a good presence from the solo laner on the Leviathans.
And he's going to be very tanky with this build. Double physical, solo, and jungler for the Tartarus Titans means that Sovereignty and Glad Shield going to find a whole lot of value. Layers has got ways to deal with defense. Nemesis, of course, can strip it away with the ultimate, but dedicating an ultimate to a King Arthur early on, considering how mobile that god is, probably not the best case scenario. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Yarkor left alone on an island. And if you leave a King Arthur alone, I don't care what the matchup is, he's probably going to do just fine. Already about a half-level lead over to the Leviathan Soul Laner SOT just now, taking over to level 11. We'll be able to match up pressure shortly. Bologna's Scourge getting close to max rank, if not already there, will offer him a good deal of sustain, as well as with the Death Toll. So that boxing potential probably lost out. Not a whole lot of 1v1 happening over there. I am curious, though. Both Soul Laners have elected to pick up Teleport in that first slot, so it could be both of them have their eyes on the rotation. Gold Fury, not exactly a great target for either of these teams. The Leviathans have got superior burn, but neither squad has really got the confirmation. So it's going to be more so about that team fight and whether or not one of these squads can pick up maybe a pick here or there.
Now, you know, I've had a question for you, because Teleport at the beginning of the year was very prominent because the upgrades for it were just good, right? Like it was something that was like, man, I get to get into the back line, have mitigations, movement speed, and just chase people around. Yeah, absolutely. It fell off for a little bit there. It wasn't necessarily the most prominent. Still see it every now and then. But do you think that the time to kill changes, these TTK changes, are what's bringing it back, or do you think do you need a fifth person in these quote-unquote early team fights, that are happening 12 minutes in, just because of the way that tankiness is now kind of permeated everybody's health bar?
I think it's more so, well, we'll get a chance to talk about it after Ronkyu's finished dealing with Aurora, who's closed gap on Shinto.
Yeah, will it be finished with Aurora? Will Aurora be finished with someone here? He's going to get pulled in by the powwow, and that's going to be a kill on the board for the Leviathans. Zap maybe playing a little aggressive here, half health, and is backing off with his team. Paul, Layers, Cyclone trying to close space, but not able to get close enough. So they come in with a plan. The Leviathans get a kill onto Aurora, and they get out of there alive.
Surprised that Aurora falls down. That was a lot of CC that goes his way. So Spirit Robe found major value, the passive. Every time you're hard CC, give you a little bit more mitigation in some of these team fights, but it doesn't really matter if 4 people are staring you down every single time, and the Leviathans landed everything. Shinto with that second ability does upwards of 30% of Aurora's HP, but the Tartarus Titans, pushing their way forward, won't let it happen for free, at least able to strip away that red buff. But to get back to the conversation we were having previously, I think it is a little bit more so to due to the fact that leads are not established from kills anymore. Kills are so hard to come by. When you do find them, respawns are still pretty quick, that it's more so objective play and just TKOs and finding buff invades. That's the majority of where the leads are established at the SPL level. So mobility is king. It is always going to reign supreme. And teleport is exactly that. It's the epitome of that mobility to maneuver and play wherever you want on the map. So it's, hey, we found an opportunity. We poke somebody out on the duo side. Maybe we can get a Gold Fury here. SOT, please TP over. And the same can be said for Yar Core, which is why I think we see a little bit more of these TPs.
Helps them get in the fight. It's fun to watch as well. I mean, being able to have them more involved. It's this weird thing. For SPL level, and granted, I realize I'm saying this, 3 kills on the board, 13.5 minutes in. I feel like the pace is like right where you would want it, right? The cadence is going in, and it's been interesting to watch because the team fights when they break out still feel like these big, grandiose team fights. And it's made me happy to watch, at least so far, how these teams have been adapting in 9-5. Even if it has been maybe a little slower towards the start, just because of how difficult it is to get a kill. One of these, still, of the 3, was a minute in. We haven't seen a play like that from Panatom since then. Just trying to make sure they stay safe. Ronyu eats a lot of damage in mid. With Pyromancer up and available, 14 minutes in, that's a very non-committal objective to maybe go for. A big grouping from the Leviathans on the left, whether they're trying to pull some Titans into a waiting trap or actually pull the Gold Fury. Cyclone Spin's got a ward on it, so they'll be able to see at least a little bit. It doesn't seem like the Leviathans want to spend a lot of time over there.
Yeah, I wonder, that Sentry Ward must be out of range for the Leviathans. So the Tartarus Titans get one over and are able to maintain eyes on the Gold Fury itself. So no opportunity now for the Leviathans to sneak this one away. But we've seen that the Leviathans are now capable of shutting down even the tankiest targets of the Tartarus Titans. Maybe not SOT, he's not going to fall down to an epic uppercut, but just the ability to put threat towards Aurora, who has gone for the tankier style of build between these two supports, is massive.
Well, Cyclone gets the knock-up, does not get the dash, gets the second knock-up. And is going to be able to get the dash plus the ult. Is able to get away there. Jingwei, safety in the kit, doesn't even use the beads. And you know, Mifflin, just because I have to make fun of myself, it did go into Executioner, and that's so wildly funny to me that I can't believe. But I guess, you know, there's the question for you to maybe go into. Why an Executioner up against this comp?
I think it's so that Nemesis and Bologna are both getting value. You're shredding defense from the enemy god instead of just making yourself a little bit stronger with those basic attacks. So an unselfish pickup. You're not really struggling too much in sustain and lane. If you force a Cyclone Spin back to base, he's just going to fly back in. So he's not so concerned with just life stealing up in the wave.
And so far, that's been fine. Sanctified Fields dropped around the Gold Fury. Gold Fury burned down. Leviathans get it. But the question is, can they get out? Wrong U's locked up by some walls from Aurora. The damage follow-up is going to be there. Once again, that dash gets a little bit of distance, but not enough to save the life of the support. But Gold Fury for support, Leviathans, they love this.
They do, but is that all the Tartarus Titans are going to do? Pyromancer's still available, and Layers has got eyes for Panatom in the jungle. If he closes gap, could put out a good deal of damage here. A TKO could lead to an objective.
Yeah, double chain, immediate pull, Panatom. tries to stay safe, does stay safe, gets under the tier 2, but like you said, TKO, and it leads to the objective, but there's a teleport being channeled. Something maybe they need to worry about. Not anything big as it comes through. I think it ends up getting canceled by a ward, or the ward getting destroyed there. So not even able to take the fight maybe they would have wanted. The steal not available. And so gold, right back to even between these two teams. 170 in favor of the Titans, which spread across 5 people is barely anything.
It is. I'm surprised the Titans don't allow that TP to go through. Yorkor is very tanky, but there was like 4 of them there. Just reset the objective, maybe even go for the kill. You could potentially talk about a Fire Giant in that situation, but no eyes on the rest of the Leviathans. Shinto had not shown himself on the wave. Maybe you're concerned about some follow-up there from the rest of them. So the Tartarus Titans did destroy the ward and did take the Pyromancer for themselves, evening up the game completely. As the game goes on, I think concern of this Leviathan scaling should rear its head as Shinto narrowly avoids the dragons. Paul just off the mark with that ultimate. Had he caught out Shinto, would have at least forced the beads, maybe the ultimate, or the shell rather, would have been pretty massive for the Tartarus Titans, especially considering Fire Giant is very rapidly becoming a viable option for both of these teams. Instead, though, Shinto walks away, 0 commitment.
And so far, no one with a massive lead. 17-16, Solar Troll has the most going for them. But with the gold being as close as it is, good farm from the Leviathans, I think, this entire game. Getting that first Gold Fury balanced out with the Pyromancer. It's been interesting to watch how those continue to unfold. Solo lane felt like Hardcore might be in a little bit of trouble. Panatom rotates over. Wrong Hughes over here as well. It's a 3v3 on the right-hand side. But no one's going to start up the fight just yet. A lot of player damage, though. And, like, admittedly, King Arthur's a bully. He's going to stack up player damage no matter what. But good, 5K above where Shinto is? And Shinto's been fighting. So I think impressive to see where this King Arthur can go.
Yeah, King Arthur doing a whole lot for the team, but it's a solo laner and it's a King Arthur, so he's just going to be constantly poking. I think more impressive is Paul and this Yu Huang putting out 10,000 as well, constantly finding poke.
Now maybe going to have to find a little bit more than just the poke. There's the Phoenix Flames. Is it going to be enough? The chain's getting thrown out there. It's going to pull in one. Aurora goes down, but they use a lot of ults to try and lock him away. Zap is rotated in as well. Dashes into the wall, looking for layers. Paul over the wall with a little bit of damage. Not enough to find a kill onto anybody. Good beads from Zap, avoids the knock-up, trying to get away. But now you've got the rotation in. Solar Troll is here, and Cyclone's hitting hard. They get a kill onto Zapman, and the chase is still on for the Titans. Up into the air goes Sot. But like you said, he is going to turn away at that epic uppercut. Does not care too much at it. It is enough just to create space between him and the Kumba.
Zapman just getting a little bit over-aggressive on the rotation in there.
He
chases
wanted
out
that
so far. Lairs gets behind the wall, so even though Zapman finds the root, not much follow-up there. I believe Lairs also still had that shield available, so not a whole lot of kill potential. And in walking so far forward, Zapman loses his beads and his life, so the Tartarus Titans could put a target on his back for the coming engagements, which should likely start up around this Oni Fury. With a minute out from that respawning, and Aurora tries to isolate Wrong Yu. Not a whole lot of follow-up just yet.
Yeah, good walls, and then immediately some
good
CC.
pull.
Nice pull back in. Layers, he's here and waiting. Shinto takes a lot, but gets under the tower. That seems to be enough. The Titans maybe surrounding Hardcore. Did he go too deep? Sot's here. Sot's going to put a little bit of pressure there in mid, but not enough to find a kill. In fact, Hardcore still may be leading forward. Vax getting stopped by Sot. They have something in mind, but what is the play here? These Leviathans are hovering in a 3v4, 4v5 as the numbers start to balance themselves out.
Man, this poke from the Yu Huang is just so hard to deal with. Throwing out the cultivated Dow, throwing out the flames, pulling people in with the dragon. This Chronos Pendant style of build, as well as the Sands of Time, just so much CDR on a god that's already got relatively low cooldowns, has allowed Paul to be the separator in these engagements. I mean, what was it, 2 minutes ago we were evaluating the damage and Yarkor was at the top? Well, he's been passed up. Paul is just in one fight completely taken over.
Paul, when we looked at it, had 9,000 damage. He has doubled his damage in those fights. And it was 5,000 down. Wow. 2,000 picked up for Hardcore throughout all of that. Paul, though, is in trouble. The chains are going to connect. There's the Aegis. There's the beads. There's the Zapman rotation. And that's going to be at least 1 kill for the Leviathans. Aurora's low, but he's going to be able to squeeze out of there. Wrong you. Knocked into the passive. A couple of autos is all it'll take. And they find 2 for their troubles.
Cyclone Spin wants to make sure
it 3.
Shinto goes down. Explosive Bolt's no good. Good peel from Yarkor, but cannot stop SOT.
Now trying to chase down Panatom layers in the jungle. Slice and dice is all you need for some damage. That speed buff putting in work. A couple of autos, and it's the Deicide triple kill for the solo laner. And SOT putting on work on this Bologna.
Where were the Leviathans taking the fight? Between a Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower of the Tartarus Titans, it was an overcommitment trying to shut down Paul. They do it. They found Paul. But Yu Huang is so good at creating space. He can remove himself from the playfield with that third ability, able to continually move. Very similar to Charybdis in that regard.
Yeah.
Functionally very similar abilities. Able to force the Leviathans to dive even deeper into the fight. Zapman decides to stay aggressive, dashes into a wall, cancels it, doesn't keep going out. So instead, it's the Tartarus Titans who are allowed to regroup, refine themselves. SOT finding the pincer through his own tower, able to just stop the Leviathans in their tracks. Layers, though, is able to take out that Tier 2 tower. Thought maybe we'd see a bit more chase from Zapman, but no ultimate available and dash is already used. He's the assassin, able to make his way out.
We end up in a position where, like you said, double dash plus a move, speed buff gets him out of there. 5 members with Fire Giant. And Mifflin, I've realized, looking at Yu Huang's hit, we've kind of seen, you know, the line, the root that hits pretty hard. The Flames of the Phoenix that hits pretty hard. The Dueling Dragons, which can hit hard, but really is good for displacement. As a mage, Paul is getting a lot of utility. He's got obviously good damage, stopping the game. And a team surrounding him that just lets him do it. And that is what I think makes it the scariest, right? And what we've already seen is if you can get to this Yu Huang, yeah, you can kill him pretty easily. I mean, you're going to take some poke in the process, but you're going to be able to win that fight. But with the way the Titans are playing, it feels like this pick has maybe elevated from what it could just be normally. Palau used in mid lane. Panatom getting chased down.
Goodness.
The damage from layers is insane. Paul gets credit for the kill. Sanctified Field's used, and it's not going to be enough to lock down layers fully. Epic Uppercut gets the health bar lower, but it's the Leviathans that are falling now. Cyclone Spin is hitting the autos. He's chunking 2 at a time, but 3 are already gone. Zap forced back to the base. Hardcore running to the Phoenix line. Zap didn't get the back off either. Solar Troll, no ult available. Only person that has it is Cyclone. They're going to take the Tier 2. Mifflin, this is starting to smell like the end of the game.
Yeah, Zapman just now making his way back to the fountain. The Tartarus Titans 5 strong with Fire Giant and a minion wave, and they're approaching the throne room.
They're walking on in. Zap, what can you do? Will this build work out? Hardcore gets erased, and meanwhile, Solar Troll is looking to solo Zapman. Forces them back into the fountain. Zap steps forward one last time. But what can you do versus 5? The Titans, they come into this set, and they end it 2-0.
Man, just another game, and it's very reminiscent of the last time we saw the Solar Scarabs, where one person gets picked out, and the team says, well, we got to get in there, man. We can't just have Panatom die for free. Someone's got to die in exchange, so we got to find something in trade. You got to know when to hold them. And you got to know when to fold him, man. And that was a fold him situation 100%. Panatom was so out of position that you could not get far enough forward to find the return kill. Shinto's baited out. Olarun's immobile. It's an easy turnaround for the Tartarus Titans that turns around into a game win.
I don't know if this makes your comparison or your phrase worse, but they did fold, just not the way they would have liked.
Like
right? The entire team completely collapsed there under the pressure from the Titans. Titans come in, they look strong here in phase number 2. It's a 2-0 win for them, but we won't break it down here. We'll go over to the desk to do so.
Thank you so much, Gore and Miff. I think throughout the majority of this early game, Charlie, we saw a lot of back and forth. Leviathans were able to keep at bay with the Tartarus Titans, but then that one team fight in the mid lane, the Deicide that ends up going south for the side of at least the Atlantis Leviathans. Tartarus Titans and their soul laner SOT really stepping up in that fight and just showing that this is a superior team fighting team.
Yeah, and also I think Paul surviving as long as he did was the reason those rotations were able to come through. It looked like a clean pick on a Paul. He saved the Celestial Flight. He saved going up into the air for so long, stalled without Palau, beads, Aegis. Zapman flies in deep, almost in a Tier 2 tower to make sure to confirm that one pick. And then Rongu, he gets poked out, unfortunately, and it's 2 down. You're like, okay, that's probably it. Then Layers wraps around, is able to find so many. SOT gets the triple kill, and Layers chases down Pantom for the complete deicide right as that Kumba spawning back in. But it was net even at that point, 2 to 4 killed-wise, but the gold completely even. What started as just a small pick turned into, you know, the lead that we saw the Titans build for themselves, and then didn't go well from there. Cyclone Spin looked so solid on this Jingwei as well. Not a highly prioritized pick anymore, but still able to pretty hard carry these games.
And going with a change up in a build compared to what we've already been seeing as new changes in the Hunter builds. You know, we were seeing the Cal Transcendence at Atlantis build. We were still seeing a little signs of light of like the Death's Toll Ikeval style of build that even Zapman was kind of popularizing. But Cyclone Spin comes out with something kind of completely different. I mean, we're seeing the Kin-size Executioner Wind Demon come out of this Jingwei build. So Cyclone also doing new things out in there, and then this team fight over here where SOT makes a massive Eagles rally to kind of get things started off. And by this point, I mean, you look at the top, the gold is dead even, kills are barely split, but it ends up being a deicide just about over the way of the Tartarus Titans SOT on this Bologna. We talk time and time about players like SOT, players like Friday. If you give them a bully god, keep them even or ahead getting to these late game fights, they're nigh unstoppable.
Yeah, it just looked pretty disgusting after the fact. And the whole squad, once they got that online, I think were able to use this team fight so well. But I think that Executioner, that Cyclone was able to pick up, just helped out the whole team, right? You're shredding protections for your whole squad. You have 2 other physical damage dealers in the Nemesis and the Bologna. So if you're shredding the protections for everyone, you know, you just get to see your physical damage dealers sort of pop off there. Obviously, Paul's still going to be at the top of the damage charts at the end of the day. Yu Huang is able to swing like that, but I think the physical damage dealers playing off each other is going to go quite well, as we just saw.
I mean, high damage out of Paul, high damage mitigated once again out of SOT, something that we sometimes kind of gloss over when we look at solo laners, but now that we're starting to see the Warriors make their way back over there, these more traditional tanky style of solo laners, I think being able to look at that damage mitigated does kind of give at least a glimpse as to how they were able to be that frontline presence for their team. Obviously, some of that's going to come in the actual laning phase and whatnot, but talking about Paul, who is the top damage on the team, we've actually got Paul standing by for our post-game interview. Congrats on your 2-0 win, by the way, up against the Leviathans.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about how you feel about this Yu Wong. It's the first time that we get to see him through his first week of play. And how does he kind of feel right now?
Dude, I think he's really fun, man. His ult, dude, his ult is so far range, and if you time it well and you know the range, you just pull them all into your second dragon, and he's like a lot of fun. I don't know. I think he's good.
Yeah, I mean, just from the performance that we got to see out of you, the win that we got out of Baronic earlier on, now I think our 4th time that we've seen him, it seems that some of these mid laners have been finding a lot of fun with them. How does it feel getting a win over Leviathans? I mean, this is a team that, you know, historically over the last 6 or so months has given you all a little bit of trouble. How does it feel being able to find a big win over them today?
Yeah, it's cool, man. But it's not like a tournament win, so we're happy, but it's not like we won Worlds, you know.
No, I get you on that one. I mean, now you're in a new phase of play. You know, you're going to have double round robin throughout the entirety of it. So being able to find at least your first win of the new season and whatnot, I mean, how does it feel for you guys?
Yeah, first win of the season. I mean, it feels really good to like win your first game rather than lose it, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it feels great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming out for the post-game interview. I'll let you back with the team to celebrate. Congrats on your win.
Thank you.
Paul, feeling good over for the Tartarus Titans. Everybody having a little bit of fun. And
It's cool, man.
Yeah, it's always nice seeing the players having some fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, it's not a tournament win, so it's not anything major. But especially when you come off of an actual tournament, you know, these guys were the champions of Masters. Being able to find a win and show that they are still a dominant team, show that they do still have what it takes to be at the top, has always got to be a good feeling. Let's take a look, though, at the schedule to see what we still have available to you guys, because that was only set 1 of the day. Charlie, I just looked down. It's only like 12:40. We still have 2 more sets to go still. The Camelot Kings and the Valhalla Valkyries are going to be our next one up. And then after that, the Solar Scarabs and the Oni Warriors to close out our Sunday of Smite.
Do we call it SPL Sunday or Smite Sunday?
We could do, why not both?
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Well, if you call it SPL Sunday, it's technically still calling it Smite Sunday, but you're just adding that it's Pro League Sunday.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's just the action-packed day. You get 3 Pro League sets. All of them are going to be crazy action-packed. Obviously, the Tartarus Titans, as you mentioned, wanted to prove that they're still on top of their game, coming off of a Masters win. Most teams, after winning a tournament like that, might coast a little bit. Aurora said they took a little break, but I'm not buying it. The way they looked there, I think they were probably grinding throughout. The second they won, they're like, all right, let's go back. Let's do a double broadcast programs like this night. Like, we're still ready to get after it, and it shows they still know exactly what they're doing in this meta.
Well, as I said, that was only set number 1 of our day. We've got 2 more. It's the Camelot Kings and the Valhalla Valkyries coming up right after this break.
I win? What did it win?
You win. You won. Respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.